Welcome to Eye.Talk.Tech, where we explore the intersection of eye care and technology. Today, we're tackling one of the most transformative concepts in modern healthcare, using the eye as a window not just to our vision, but to systemic health. 1 in 5 Americans haven't seen a primary care doctor in 5 years, yet 60% get annual eye exams. What if we could use that routine eye care visit to detect things like heart disease, neurological conditions, or kidney problems before symptoms appear? Our guest today is Dr. Rupe Hansra, who is pioneering a field called Oculomics, and in his capacity with TopCon, building the infrastructure to make AI-driven healthcare from the eye a reality. Dr. Hansra, I'm so excited to have you here today. First of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Griff. Thanks for the invite. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and before we dive into Oculomics and AI, can you maybe paint a picture for us just in general as we look at how an eye exam is conducted, how maybe that has fundamentally changed in the last couple of decades, and maybe what has stubbornly stayed the same?
Yeah, and so let me paint a picture of an eye exam from actually a picture that I had seen recently. And so in this picture, we actually have an eye doctor, we have a exam chair, a patient. We have trial lenses, a phoropter, and in that picture actually was taken not 2 weeks ago, but it was actually taken in the year 1933, courtesy of the Wisconsin Historical Society. So you can imagine, if I'm a patient walking into an exam room, I could say, well, not a lot has changed over the past 100 years or so. But as you and I both know, a lot has changed, whether it's medical devices with OCTA, we can actually image down to the micron level. It is new breakthroughs with pharmacology, anti-VEGF, and all of that. So a lot has changed over the past 100 years. Now, the one thing that has not changed in the past 100 years is that doctors, we continue to work in a silo, Griff.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And how do we break that silo? What's the key there?
Well, I think, why do we want to break the silo is probably the first question that we want to ask, right? So we know that we've got a broken healthcare system. We spend more money on healthcare than any other developed nation per capita, and yet we have of the worst outcomes. And as you know, I think you shared with me a stat the other day. What was it? 6 in 10 Americans have some type of chronic disease.
Mm.
Yeah, and then one
correct.
in 5 has not seen their primary care physician in over 5 years, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a big issue, and it's very problematic for us.
Yeah, one, we know that the eye care professional is well positioned to see a lot of these folks, and so maybe that will lead to an opportunity not just for the profession but for the patients that we're seeing to get a better healthcare evaluation. So you guys have at TopCon have kind of coined the term healthcare from the eye, and you're championing this field of oculomics. Maybe for our listeners who may be hearing this for the first time, what is oculomics and why exactly is it revolutionary?
Yeah, and so I guess the question then becomes, if we know, to your point, that they're more likely to see their eye care professional than they are to see their physician, what if, during an eye exam or a wellness screening, we take an image of the retina and we run an AI model through it, and we're able to detect and diagnose systemic as well as ocular diseases. And so now what we're able to do is we're able to create a system that's much more affordable, accessible, and equitable for everybody. And so I think that is the mission of what we're calling healthcare from the eye. And in order to better understand what healthcare from the eye is, we have to understand this concept that you had mentioned called oculomics. And so oculomics is the study of how data is derived from the eye, especially the retina, and how that can then be used to better understand, detect, and predict systemic diseases. I think the modern definition of oculomics, and an easy one for all of us as eye care providers to remember, it's applying AI to retinal images to draw out healthcare insights, both systemic as well as ocular. And so the implementation of oculomics with that patient that's 2 feet away from you, and to be able to do so in real time and derive these healthcare insights with that patient sitting in your chair. So the implementation and delivery of oculomics is what we are calling healthcare from the eye.
Perfect. Well, and so, as eye doctors, a lot of the listeners of this podcast will know that the different insights they can glean from looking at a retinal image. Maybe they're finding vascular abnormalities or AV nicking or diabetic retinopathy, all these things. What is it maybe that the computer and the AI models can detect that the primary care physician, ocular physician, can't see today?
Are you talking about a primary care ECP or a primary care physician?
Yeah, I should phrase it as optometrist or ophthalmologist, anybody who is well versed in is a human in looking at these retinal images. What is maybe there that's behind the scenes that they aren't detecting today, or maybe not as efficiently as they could be?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think that we do a great job, first of all. I think eye care practitioners do an excellent job. And we see just a mountain of disease that comes through our doors as ECPs. And we are the gateway into the entire healthcare system. And we could be even more so. So I had recently seen a study around glaucoma, for example. And so when you take a disease like glaucoma, it is a multifactorial complex disease, right? And we are currently, in many cases, using OCT as either a wellness screener, right? And so if I compare your eyes to the normative database that's in an OCT, or you compare my eyes, you and I are two completely different demographics, right? You would be lucky to have one or two eyes in that normative database. That normative database isn't 10,000, 100,000, or even a million eyes. That normative database, and a lot of these FDA-approved OCTs, is maybe 400 eyes. And so, imagine a world where we're comparing Griff's eyes to 400 sick eyes that may or may not be the same demographic. And so we're gonna end up getting a number of false positives. Now, the numbers that I've seen in some of the studies has been 25 to 50% of false positives when we use the OCT as a wellness screener for glaucoma. And on top of that, what we're finding is that there may be up to 25% of patients that may have glaucoma that we're actually missing. And so, because the database is not representative of a real world population, and then we're trying to draw these health insights. But, what if I had a database of 1 million eyes or 10 million eyes? Now I'm taking Griff's eyes, your age, your demographic, your genetics, and I'm comparing it to 10 million eyes. And maybe there's 100 that are kind of like you. Now all of a sudden we can develop this personalized precision medicine that's going to be much, much more accurate. So, these clinical decision support dashboards is what we're calling them. It's not designed to replace Dr. Christenson. It's designed to be sort of a double click to make sure that we are detecting when we should. We're prognosing in a way that's realistic. And then at the same time, we're not letting patients slip through the crack, or we even over-referring to a system that's overly burdened currently.
Yeah, well, I think the scope and the size of that data that is becoming more accessible for developing these algorithms is really important to highlight. The one that I find myself talking about with friends that are clinicians and so forth is, could you look at a retinal image and tell me what sex that individual is?
Yes.
And that's something that AI models can do, right? Or what's the likelihood that you're going to have a cardiovascular event in the next 5 years? And some of the things that can be done when you have data at that scale are pretty magical. Now, that said, AI doesn't magically work. Even though the results sometimes seem magical, it doesn't just magically work. It requires this incredible degree of infrastructure, different devices, platforms, and they have to communicate. And so what do you see is the technology stack that makes this Oculomics possible from the hardware side to start?
Yeah, that's a great question again. And I think that all starts with robotic devices. I think that's where it all begins. And you can use any device that you want, right? You could use, I think kind of what we're seeing today with devices is that, put your chin on the chin rest, forehead touching, look for the bullseye, look for the red house, and you put your chin in there, forehead touching, you kind of don't see it. You see the red light, right? But you're supposed to look for the green light. And then, your technician says, well, move back. Well, I see the blue light now. Well, move forward. Well, I see the green light. Twist your head, right? And we're going to go ahead and take the image. So we take the image, and what ends up happening, Griff? We get lashes, right?
Yep.
And when we
Yep.
get lashes, your pupil constricts, and then I have to retake the image. And now I'm taking the image, and I'm not really getting a great image, so I keep retaking the images, and I start saving them all. Because all of them are just kind of okay, and I can't decide which is the best image. I save them all, and I let the doctor decide. So here's 4 images of one eye and 3 or 4 images of another eye, doc. You tell me which one you like, and you can save whatever one you want. And so that kind of exists today mainstream, as opposed to robotic digital diagnostic devices. So if it's a robotic device, put your chin in the chin rest, forehead touching, and it automatically centers, takes the image of one eye, takes the image of the other eye. And so now it's not operator dependent. So you don't have to worry about the variability of the input going into your AI models, because it's one touch, consistent capture each and every single time. And so now that translates into better data output coming from your AI models, which is much, much more accurate. So that's probably the first thing that I would do.
Sure.
And here's the issue. The issue is, if I'm going to choose equipment like I'm buying furniture, and maybe that's how we've done it in the past, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and we're not looking for devices that are Oculomics ready. And again, I think that all starts with robotic instrumentation. You're sort of stuck with that decision for the lifetime of that device, which is generally 5 to 7 years, right? And so now you're going to actually fall behind. So the very first thing I would ensure, if I'm in the market for equipment right now in terms of retinal imaging equipment, make sure it's robotic in nature, A. B is, we need to have, much like like I have an iPhone right here, right? So if the device is much like your iPhone, the hardware, what sits inside your iPhone? Here it's the iOS, right? So we've got a digital management platform, data management platform that sits in Microsoft Azure Cloud for security and scalability. We call that Harmony. And Harmony does many things. It is a referral and consult system. You may know it as a PAC system. It's a great image management system as well, and it does it very, very well. But in the context of what we're talking about today, what sits on top of your iOS? Your applications. And the applications that you may have on your phone, you may have the ESPN app or the FanDuel app because you like to gamble. I don't know, I'm always losing. And so maybe have the NBA app or the Better Homes and Gardens app. But we get to pick and choose the applications. Within the Harmony system itself, on top of the Harmony, we would layer on these AI applications. Maybe one is for Parkinson's, one is for Alzheimer's, maybe one is for cardiometabolic, one is for neurodegenerative. And so think of your iPhone as a great model for how then we would then choose our instrumentation and what that would look like in our offices. Because the AI models don't actually sit connected directly to your iPhone, right? They're connected on top of the iOS system, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does for me, and I think for most folks that can have the technology bend like our listeners, it will. But to reemphasize the point, you're saying that the AI models oftentimes live at a data center somewhere, right? They have the hardware that's capable of running this, and Harmony is allowing for the interconnectedness. The other thing that a platform like Harmony allows for, which I think is cool, to take more of a something that's currently more on the research side of things and maybe make it practical in the not too distant future, is what we call multimodal imaging, right?
Exactly.
That's taking, and it's really emulating what the doctor does in a lot of ways, which is taking your OCT image and your retinal photo and harnessing those together, much as a doctor or clinician making a decision would do. That's what's exciting to me for sure. Is that something you guys are looking at?
Oh yeah, we're definitely looking at it, and getting back to the hardware question, and I definitely want to get back into this one because I want to share with you how much research we put behind all of this.
Sure.
But if anybody tells you you can run your AI model and connect it right to your hardware, that's a tall task, so to speak, because there's many disadvantages for connecting your AI models directly and integrating it into your hardware. I mean, each of these devices has its own quirks. So there's, whether it's the camera, the sensors, the memory, and so then you have to take this very complex and then put together an abstraction layer to take all these complexities and simplify it. If you want to do a firmware update, how do you do that? If there's bugs in the system, how again do you do that? And so by doing this in a data management platform like Harmony, all of a sudden all of that stuff can be done in real time and be fixed, at scale, right?
Yep.
And it's much more secure at the same time. Now, when you say, is this something that you guys have been looking at? That's I'm chuckling with that because if you haven't have you met our CEO, Alita Freshy?
I haven't had the chance.
I definitely want to introduce you at one of the next big events that we have. Well, Alita Freshy is the reason I came over here to TopCon. And Ali started off imaging people while he was in medical school at the Shiley Eye Institute. And Dr. Robert Weinreb had asked Ali to start imaging these Parkinson's and Alzheimer's patients. And this is going back, you imagine 20 years ago. And Ali's like, why are we doing this? And Dr. Weinreb said, there's a link between, the back of your eye and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. I can't really prove it yet, but I want you to start capturing all this data. So this has been, with Ali for 20 years. And as Ali has architected this new TopCon into what I would call a solutions company, not just selling devices, but taking the devices and integrating it with solutions to then drive this or push this concept of Oculomics. He has personally validated. So he's created a corporate venture capital fund, and what this corporate venture capital fund does, it takes these AI developers. We've got an incubator and accelerator program to help them provide guidelines to get their AI models to the market. We even invest anywhere from $400,000 to $10 million to help facilitate and get more AI models out in the market so we can all benefit from it. But he personally, along with our CVC team, has vetted over 650 different companies in the last 2 years. That's an extraordinary amount. And, obviously there's been a lot of rejections, but there's also been a lot of guidance provided to these companies to help them, in whether it's providing data sets, whether it's helping connecting the dots, it's providing advice for them, or it's just simply giving them a desk at our TopCon Healthcare Innovation Center here in San Diego.
Well, yeah, I did come across Ali's name when he first joined TopCon. He kind of had a release talking about how central AI was going to be to their approach in healthcare here, and I said, oh, that's something I have an interest in, and to see you guys execute on that has been really cool. So I'd certainly love the opportunity to meet him. This whole space, to me, certainly at least, is very exciting. And you touched on this a little bit, but I think it's fair to say that it raises some other concerns for a lot of folks around privacy, bias, transparency. And so certainly the way that the data is stored and all those are concerns, but also keeping the doctor in the loop, keeping that patient-doctor interaction is an issue there. So there's a lot of issues. We could pull on a few of those different threads, but just overall, what do you think about how AI development and deployment can be done responsibly?
Yeah, that's a tough question. And so
big topic.
There's a big topic. And I think, if you've seen our press releases, it sort of feels like, every 2 weeks or so, to your point, whether it's a press release about Alita Freshy or it's a press release about an AI company that we've invested into, I think a lot of people right now are sort of, again, playing catch up. I really feel that, we are setting the global benchmark in this space. And I think part of that is because we have brought on a major partner of ours. And so it is not just, eye care or medicine. This is the intersection now of where big tech gets involved, to your point. So we've had a relationship. Yep. We formally announced it, I believe it was March of 2024 with Microsoft, So Microsoft and their CMO, Dr. David Rue, has really helped steward and guide us to ensure that there is trustworthiness and responsible AI that we're putting together. As a matter of fact, they created an organization called TRAIN. I think it's called the Trustworthy and Responsible AI Network. And that's dedicated to operationalizing trustworthy AI in healthcare. And so this is, it's all sorts of companies getting together in partnership with Microsoft to deliver AI-powered healthcare from the eye solutions and improve healthcare outcomes. But in order to do so, we have to sort of validate these AI models, be able to explain these AI models, be able to share that there is a way when you do get drift with these AI models, that there's a way to bring them back and allow them to, and make sure that they're doing the things that they say that they're going to do. And so there needs to be a little bit of oversight with some of this, and there needs to be some sort of way that we can accredit these AI models. Because if you don't have the right database and you're not validating these AI models, then in a real world, they may not be doing the things that they are intending to do.
But something that's clearly on the forefront of your efforts there. The other thing I wanted to touch base on here is that the recently launched Alliance for Healthcare from the Eye at ARVO here in 2025, and there's a publication in JAMA Ophthalmology. What really is this Alliance's mission? What are they all about? And how do you scale Oculomics? I think is maybe one of the focuses there.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I'm glad you actually read that article. It's a wonderful article, and again, there was a big press release that was launched at ARVO. Now, what's interesting here is this is not just optometry driven, right? Optometry is one of the key stakeholders, but it's a multi-stakeholder. So the original members or the original founders of the Alliance for Healthcare from the Eye is Dr. Robert Weinreb, Chief of Ophthalmology, Shiley Eye Institute. It's Alita Freshy, who's our CEO, and it's Dr. David Rue, Chief Medical Officer of Microsoft. So this is a multi-stakeholder coalition. It's a consortium of healthcare organizations consisting of health systems, physicians, payers, researchers, policymakers, regulators, data privacy experts, people that work in industry, government, consumer advocacy groups. It's everybody getting together here to talk about how we can actually make a positive impact in the real world with Oculomics. And so there's probably 4 areas in terms of mission for the Alliance for Healthcare from the Eye. First is expanding affordable access to care. Number 2, it's ensuring responsible use of AI and patient data. 3, which is extremely important, which I'm hoping we can talk about, is coordinating care across systems or between providers. And then number 4, it's supporting long-term healthcare outcomes and cost reductions.
Yeah. So it's a big project, to say the least.
Yeah, and if I could add, it's pretty cool because you have optometry, you have ophthalmology, you have subspecialty ophthalmology like retina, you've got neuro. The American Heart Association attends. The American Diabetes Association attends. There's representatives from, some of the major ophthalmology groups as well as optometry. I had seen Dr. Michael Shiglazian speak at the ARVO event back in April, which he was absolutely amazing. And as you know, he's one of the leading glaucoma researchers from Illinois College of Optometry. So to see optometry having a seat at the table with, members of the NEI or NIH sitting there at the same table is absolutely incredible.
Well, and you mentioned at the start of the episode here the silos that maybe we practice in healthcare. I think there's maybe some other silos which are, we have healthcare professionals and experts in that field. We have tech professionals, business professionals, and there's a few different languages that all these folks are trying to talk, and I'm sure at times it leads to talking past one another, but it also leads to an opportunity for learning about these other spaces. But what have you noticed in trying to grapple with the challenges of having doctors understand the technological impacts of all this? I'm sure it's something you're right at the center of.
Yeah, it sure is. And I think we don't need to worry about generative adversarial networks. We don't need to worry about foundation models and all that as a practitioner. I don't remember the exact quote from Steve Jobs, but it was something along the lines of it takes a lot of hard work to make something simple. And, when you get your iPhone, that iPhone, there's no directions that come with it. Although it's a very, very complex device, right? Yeah. For us as the end user, it's something that's very, very easy. And what I want to get across to ECPs and primary care physicians and cardiologists and everybody else is that this is going to take all of this complex data sets, what you call multimodal data sets, that you said so wonderfully. It's taking the imaging data, the EMR data, maybe it's pachymetry that goes into this AI model. Maybe it's fundus imaging along with OCT. It's OCTA. There's all sorts of data, and this data continues to grow and grow and grow and grow. And so what these AI models should be doing for us is simplifying it. So you don't have to be an expert at tech. You don't have to be an expert at glaucoma. You don't have to be an expert at uveitis and all these other diseases. We can leverage AI to create these clinical decision support dashboards that can be as simple as monitor, refer, or treat. It's a double click for us. It's not here to replace the doctor or to make it more complicated, our lives more complicated. It's designed to help guide us into where should we be looking. And so if you think about laboratory test, all the blood work that you get, it could be 3 or 4 pages, but then you have your norms, right? And if something's outside the norm, it's flagged. Well, you get 3 or 4 of these that are flagged. Now you can start to put your differential diagnoses together or start to think about putting more tests together to validate the assumptions that you are now creating. But it's designed to make our lives easier, not more complex as practitioners.
Certainly one, and that makes things easier for our patients too when you talk about explainability and some of these things where clinicians maybe are deeply embedded and experts in a particular condition, but then bringing that back to the patient's level so that's understandable is in a whole other area where AI might have inroads as well. One thing that I found fascinating, going back to when I was a student, kind of my second go around when I was in the computer science pathway, there is a lot of the medical cases and test problems and so forth you might work for were focused on radiology. And it looks like now that eye care is poised to pass radiology and FDA AI approvals. Can you explain, how that has maybe come to pass?
Another great question. And so that's true. I think it is, about 70% of all the current AI models are in radiology today. Cardiology is also another one. So AI in healthcare really isn't anything new. But again, the eye is an organ that can be three-dimensionally imaged at the micron level type of resolution. And so it enables non-invasive, low-cost, rapid testing, and you're going to the eye doctor anyway. So I'm usually going to the eye doctor when I turn 40. So my glasses are scratched, they're broken, I'm seeing blurry, or I just can't see clearly, right? And so at that point, I'm going to be coming in and seeing the eye doctor anyway. And if we as ODs or ECPs are used to running these wellness screenings, the only thing different that we're doing is we're putting an AI model on top of the images to draw out these healthcare insights that we may or may not be able to see. To your point, I can't tell you by looking at a retina if the sex of the patient. And when we're looking at the retina and we're looking at the patterns there that may exist, some of them we can actually see with our eyes, and some of them we're not able to see the different hues and the different topography of the retina. But using these AI models and generative AI, we can then start to draw these insights. That's going to be a very, very powerful tool. And so, again, being able to image down to the micron level and see an organ actually functioning in real time is a huge benefit for us.
Yep. Something I've really found myself emphasizing to patients is this is kind of the only organ in the body we can just look inside so easily, and there's a lot we can glean here. So I think it's a fascinating topic. To kind of conclude here, Dr. Hansra, if an optometrist or an ophthalmologist listening today wants to start laying the foundation for AI-driven proactive care in their practice, you mentioned the hardware importance of having robotic, reliable imaging. What would you see maybe as being the very first step they might want to take in that direction?
Yeah, and the very first step, again, is digital robotic device, imaging devices. Investigate what's out there, see what works for you, because that choice is then going to be important for you for the next 5 to 7 years. And Griff, we're at an inflection point right now. We already have AI models that are approved right now. And in the next 12 to 18 months, we're going to have a slew more of AI models getting approved. So this AI is not happening 5, 10 years down the road. Yeah. It's here, and it's only going to accelerate in the next year or so. So choose your devices that are Oculomics ready, that are robotic in nature. Number 2, and again, this is not a TopCon infomercial, but you're going to need a data management platform, something like Harmony. And then 3 would be to be able to investigate these AI models, make sure that they are FDA approved, that they do go along with the device that you have chosen, and I think you're going to be well primed for AI.
Well, thank you so very much for your insights here today, Dr. Hansra. To our listeners, if they're interested in learning more, where maybe would you direct them to your work, to TopCon's works and efforts in this space?
Sure. I mean, you can go to topconhealthcare.com. You can reach me at rhansra@topcon.com as well.
We'll be sure to provide that in the links in our notes here. If you found this conversation valuable, please like, subscribe, and share it with your colleagues. The future of proactive AI-driven care is here, and it's very exciting for us providers in the eye care space that it starts with the eye. So thanks again so much, and we'll see you guys all next time on Eye.Talk.Tech.
Thank you, Dr. Christenson.